Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have a review here, as you can tell from the title, for a very controversial film. A film that everybody has been debating and talking about recently, especially since it finally landed on the Shudder app. I love Shudder, was very excited for this film. It's technically a 2022 film, even though it's getting a lot of its press now in 2023, and that movie is Skinamarink. Now, to preface this review, if you're one of those dumbass hipster types that are telling everybody you don't understand it and that's why you don't like it, not you, but them, screw yourself. I think you honestly think you could be the most disingenuous person that exists in the film audience of the world. Number one, I'm a big fan of art house movies, horror-wise, thriller-wise, I don't care what it is. My personal favorite director is Nicholas Winding Refn. I'm a massive fan of David Lynch. I think that Eraserhead and another film he didn't work on, called Antrim, the deadliest film ever made, which is kind of art house as well. I think both of those are the scariest movies I've ever seen in my entire life. They both frighten me deeply on almost like a primal level. I love art house. And I love what you could call experimental movies. I love that. And if you've looked at any reviews at all for Skinamarink, you have probably heard the word experimental get tacked onto it constantly. You've probably heard people constantly justify this film, who probably have, all the looks and visuals of a typical shill/hipster who wants to be unique because they have to feel unique compared to everybody else around them and special and so on and so on. You're going to find people all over the internet who are trying to justify this movie that I don't really call a movie. You might want to argue over the context of what defines a movie. Well, my opinion is a movie has to have an actual plot, it has to have actual characters, and it has to not seem like a money laundering scam like a lot of the art world looks like to me. Skinamarink is an experimental horror film, in the same vein of something like Blair Witch Project or Paranormal Activity. However, those are actual movies with actual stories, actual events. This film is not so much that. I don't even like to call it a movie. I told my wife this too when I talked about it the other day after I watched it about 3 days ago. I wanted to let it sit and fester and really think about it, give myself some time to get over the anger of feeling like I wasted so much time on this turd of a movie. Again, I'm a fan of experimental cinema, and I thought it being a supposed ghost movie, haunted house movie, whatever, that's all I knew going into it. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know about the way it's filmed, which I'll get to in a moment. I recommend everybody try to go into movies in general without knowing anything about them. But if it's something big like Star Wars or like Scream or Halloween, I can't resist. I have to watch trailers for things like that. Not every single one, but the big premiere ones, I have to see the trailers. And when I see words like experimental and different get used in the last 5 years on anything, I don't care what it is, on anything, it usually scares me away a lot of the time. This one I was excited for because it is a horror film, and I wanted something really unique. And I thought it was going to be unique in the way that people were describing it. Everybody keeps calling this shit a found footage movie. Stop fucking calling it that. It's not a found footage movie. This is not a found footage movie. This is shot in a way that you could misrepresent it to be found footage, but it's absolutely not that whatsoever. Stop calling it that. It is not like a Blair Witch style. This is an art house movie, but in the most obnoxious of ways. Again, when I say hipster, I mean hipster, and I mean that. No offense to anybody who worked on this film, but I don't believe this was made for $15,000. I think it's a straight-out ridiculous situation if it was. Yeah, the film was supposedly made by $15,000 budget. That's crazy to me, because it doesn't feel like it, and I'll get to why in a moment. There is a very famous situation that happened years ago. I think this particular art piece in the art world sold for either millions or hundreds of thousands. It was quite a bit of money, if I'm remembering correctly. And all it was a fake wall with a banana taped to it. To me, when I finished Skinamarink the other day, that is what I felt like I had been gooned on, basically. I feel like somebody trolled me by watching this movie with all the press and all the shills, all the people out there that were just constantly raving about this movie. But all the normies hated it. And that's not always a case that you're going to get a movie that genuinely sucks. That's not always the case. There are movies that I love that a lot of people don't like Antrim, the deadliest film ever made. And then I took the time out. I saw it pop up on Shudder, and I was super excited about that. I finally watched it, and I basically learned to hate it in like the first 15 minutes. because I thought it was going to change a little bit, and it did not. With all that being said, I want you to understand that as I talk about this movie, the way I view Skinamarink is through the lens of this is a fucking banana taped to a wall. That's all I look at it as. It's a scummy, ridiculous thing that someone out there is going to call art because they have to feel special. Not saying the filmmaker did that. Maybe a little bit. But it feels like one of those kinds of money laundering schemes that the art world is known for, in my personal opinion. Not saying this specific example, Skinamarink, is one. I'm just saying it feels like that type of thing, you know? Because anybody else will look at it and say it's a banana taped to a wall. What is the plot of Skinamarink? Well, Skinamarink is, by the write-up that everybody keeps quoting all of the time, all over the internet, that you barely have any exposure to this, this is basically a plotless movie. Just in case you don't know, the events I'm about to summarize to you for the concept, it's more about the execution and not so much the story. And I'll get to why. In case you haven't heard anything about this film, there are a lot of younger viewers on my channel that have come from my Goosebumps channel that probably haven't even heard of Skinamarink, but it's gotten pretty notable recently in the horror community. It is pretty controversial, but pretty much for the wrong reasons. For the reasons that an actual movie should not be. Sorry. Been working all day. So, the plot of this movie is apparently about two kids. I still don't know if it's two boys and a girl, or two boys. I think it's a boy and a girl. I think their names are Kevin and Kaylee, I believe. I believe it's Kevin and Kaylee. Anyway, God, I'm trying to lose my voice now. It's like the curse of the Skinamarink now. They are very young, like 4, 5, 6 years old, somewhere in there. They wake up in the middle of the night. And their mom doesn't live with them. Apparently something happened to her. We don't really get a defined answer on that, but, you know, apparently that's hinted at by the very few amount of dialogue words that are used in this film. Very sparingly. Maybe every 5 or 10 minutes somebody will say something. That's a whole other thing we're going to talk about later in the review. But anyway, for right now, let's focus on the kids. They wake up, their dad, who I assume is the one who takes care of them, has the custody of them in this house. He's gone. They don't know what happened to him, and, they're kind of in a small panic, but then eventually, like most kids, they just adapt immediately, like, okay, Dad doesn't exist anymore. That's just kind of what they do. And they start playing with their Legos. It's pitch black outside. And we see camera angles throughout the film that are not focused on the kids at all. There's one shot in the entire film where you may see the side of a kid's face, but for the most part, the way the filmmaking goes, and, you know, we'll get to the other aspects that I want to complain about too in a moment, but most of the shots in this film are either facing up at the ceiling at a door frame, or facing down at the ground at carpet, and you may see the kids walk by the carpet sometimes. A lot of the other camera angles are aimed towards the TV, playing public domain cartoons that kids nowadays probably don't know about. People like myself knew some of them from old reruns back in the day on like Cartoon Network when I was a kid, which was cool. I liked seeing that. That was kind of nice for a nice little quaint moment in this movie. By the way, this movie is an hour and 40 minutes, and again, I would say most of this movie are shots faced at the ceiling or faced at the floor. Not at people. Not at people. When people are talking, it's always off screen. I don't know if that's for the sake of the kids' acting ability. I don't know what that is. I'm not going to insult the kids. It's not their fault. They're probably related to the director for all I know. But $15,000 to aim cameras at the ceiling and at the floor. And sometimes at Legos. I'm having a better time picking the leftover meatball from my spaghetti and meatballs out of my front teeth while I do this review than I did watching this movie. I'm having a better time. Let me be honest with you. I felt after an hour and 40 minutes of this shit that I wanted to rip my eyes out. Let me be honest with you. The film is trying to focus on tension, right? And a lot of this tension comes from every once in a while, very uncommonly, either Kaylee or Kevin, I believe, again, that's their names, I think. One of them will get called away either upstairs to a bedroom or to downstairs in the basement by some mysterious voice. We don't know if it's the mom, the dad, a ghost, we don't know. The film has a lot of debating and theories around it about what it is, what it's about. I will tell you by the end of it, I still don't know. Let me be honest with you. It's a mystery of a film that doesn't really have an engaging mystery. One of my favorite art house films is a Casey Affleck film from about 5 years ago. It's called A Ghost Story. It's not a horror film, but it has horror elements to it. I love that movie. That movie is so much better than some shit like this. I don't care that it had a higher budget. I don't care that it had a better cast. It's just a better movie all around, involving death in a haunted house and whatever, if you want to call it a haunted house. It's really not that. But this movie, I look at it and I feel so irritated. The fact that hipsters and shills are saying so much about it and raving about this thing. Raving about it. Just like they did with Halloween Ends. And everybody else hates it, you know, or thinks it's the most lackluster, stupid nonsense they've ever seen in their life. It is amazing to me how people are trying to justify this movie based on the budget and based on it being an art house experimental movie. It doesn't qualify as a movie, in my opinion. There's barely any plot at all. I think it's ridiculous that people are trying to claim this is like the scariest thing ever made. And I have some positives to give it, and I will get there eventually. But let's get back to the actual filmmaking aspect. A lot of the shots I already talked about, that the film itself is supposed to look very old, like VHS quality. It's clearly not VHS quality. It's clearly not filmed on VHS cameras, as far as I know. But it did the best job I think I've ever seen of a movie looking like that. In the sense of like homemade footage, you know, like damaged footage type stuff. But it's not a found footage movie again. So that quality is just a film style. It's not really part of a found footage thing, because it's not a found footage movie. Anyway, moving along though, the sound design is very poor for a specific reason. There are so many times when people actually talk, maybe every other sentence, maybe every 2 or 3 sentences, you actually get subtitles on the screen to help you understand what the hell you just heard. And towards the end of the film, one of the people on YouTube that I really don't watch that often, but I saw a video about this movie from him, and he was 1000% right, is Cody Leach. Cody Leach feels the exact same way I seem to feel about this movie. And one of the best things he said was that in the final third of this movie, where you really needed subtitles, a lot more than the rest of the film where nothing was happening at all. There was a little bit more happening in the third act. Not much, but a little bit. You don't have like any subtitles at all. Barely any. For the stuff that you really truly need to hear. Of course, on Shudder, you can adjust and have like the auto-created subtitles. That helped me a little bit, but did it make the film better? No. No, it did not. It was still a waste of my time. Visually, this movie is so dark, I can't see most of it. I have pretty good vision for my age, not even 30 yet, right at 28, turning 29 later this year. I have pretty good vision. I could not see most of this movie, I'm gonna be honest with you. And they try to play that up, and people that review this and are in love with it, they're all trying to be like, it uses your brain to mess with you. Shut up. That's stupid, that's a cop-out. It's not utilized well, in my opinion. I think that's goofy to even excuse that and try to make that the reason why you think it's a great movie. There's a couple of shots that was kind of working a little bit, but the tension wasn't there at those moments to really even follow through on it, in my personal opinion. The whole thing, it's a banana taped to a wall. It's a banana taped to a wall. It feels like the Emperor's New Clothes situation. Let me go on to the writing, I guess. The very little bit of dialogue that's in here, it's nothing special. Again, it reminds me of when people were determined that FNAF, Five Nights at Freddy's, had like the most complex story ever. And I'm a Five Nights at Freddy's fan, but not because of some lore in these games, just because I like the style of gaming. I like the animatronics, I like all of that stuff. I'm excited for the new movie for it. But the idea of FNAF having this lore that just runs so deep about the Purple Man and stuff, I think that's goofy. I think people that care so much about that are usually younger audiences that have been told by people like Matt Pat on YouTube, the game theorist, whatever. That's promoted by people like that. And that's fine. Whatever. Whatever. You know, not a big deal. But the older audiences like myself just want animatronics killing people. That's all I want to see. You know, that's all I really care about. When FNAF is what we're talking about, that's what I'm looking at, right? And I say that to say this. There are people out there who are going to love this film and tear it apart, looking for lore and trying to make something out of it. And I think literally anybody on the planet could make anything out of this banana with tape on the wall to really make themselves, force themselves almost, to think they saw something brilliant. It would not surprise me if there is a sequel in the works for this movie. I would not be surprised at all, because somebody out there is going to demand it and think it's the classiest thing ever made. People are trying to make this into the new Blair Witch Project. I'm not even that big of a Blair Witch guy, but that's a better movie than this, in my opinion. And that, from what I remember, that didn't cost much more than this cost. A lot of the atmosphere stuff doesn't work for me. That being said, though, I do want to give the film its props. It's not a complete loss, but let me say this. I hated most of this movie. I think most of it's ridiculous excuse nonsense to try to justify a movie for $15,000 that really has nothing going for it, in my personal opinion. But the thing that got me the most was that there were 3 distinct moments. One that I can't entirely remember, but I remember a little bit of the shape of that, that actually kind of creeped me out. There's one involving a bed, there's the one I can't remember, and then there's the one that involves eyes in the dark. And I'm going to tell you, the eyes in the dark thing I watched in the dark by myself, that particular part of the movie. And out of an hour and 40 minutes of this movie's runtime, that scene lasts maybe 2 minutes. And it really, really got me. Great scare. Really genuinely great scare. The bed scene I referred to. I'm not going to spoil any of this stuff, just so you know. That scene takes place over the course of about 5 minutes. Very tense, very well set up, very good scare right there. But a lot of this movie's scares are, we're going to crank static up as loud as we possibly can to blow your eardrums out so that you're confused and you're just kind of shocked. It's like we just threw a flashbang at you and you're confused right now. You're trying to figure out where you are and what happened. That's what this movie reminds me of most of the time, because there's like 6 jump scares that are just loud noises in your face. Nothing in your face, just loud noises in your face, right in your ears, to hurt you, to confuse you a little bit, and make you think maybe something happened to the kids. I think this is ridiculous. I think this movie's blown out of proportion. I think people are trying their best to justify the money they spent to watch this. I think, again, hipsters, you shills, you're all basically about the same thing for your little communities. A lot of you are ridiculous trying to say this is an incredible film. If you like it, if you genuinely like it, I'm not making fun of you. I want to restate that. I'm not making fun of the people out there who genuinely love this movie. I don't fucking get you, but I'm going to be honest with you, Skinamarink is a movie. It's a banana taped to a wall. And if you truly love this, if you truly believe that this is a good movie, well, I have a bridge to sell you, my friend. I'm not a fan of this one. There's not really any music, by the way, just in case you need to know. I don't really think there was anything. It's just kind of like the replaying of the cartoons in the background. Again, kind of quaint, but kind of overused in this hour and 40-minute long film. Just so you know, this is based on a concept by the same guy who made it off a short film that was about 30 minutes long. That feels perfect. I have not seen that short film yet. It's on YouTube, I believe. It's called Heck, H-E-C-K. I want to check that out. Because this concept and the execution of it with aiming up at ceilings and floors and carpet and shit, that could have been great for like a 40 or 45 minute long movie. I really do believe that. But a full hour, 40-minute long movie, and how people are trying to like say like, oh yeah, it's my nightmares of when I was a kid put up on the screen. How many damn comments have you seen from some bot loser on YouTube claiming that? That is insane. There are too many people claiming that. I don't believe those accounts are real. I don't. Frankly, I don't. I don't believe that everybody all of a sudden had some horrific trauma that looked anything like this movie, that all of a sudden everybody feels like this movie projected that from their brains onto the screen. That is fucking ridiculous, frankly. And I think that how many people are saying that in every comment section I look at proves my point, that everybody's just copying each other to say they love this movie. It is fucking ridiculous, in my opinion. All that being said, though, I hated Skinamarink. I have those 3 moments, that one of them I don't even really remember that much, so really 2 moments in the hour and 40-minute long runtime that I thought were really solid, really solid, and would have been great in like a YouTube video, which, matter of fact, this filmmaker used to be a YouTuber who would take people's comments that were about their nightmares and stuff and make them into videos. That sounds great, doesn't it? That's what some of this film feels like and actually does well. Sometimes. Not always, though. Sometimes. All that being said, though, check out the reviews from The Choice Voice, from Rambo Raft for Life, 2 of my favorite YouTubers out there who reviewed this fucking turd of a movie that everybody is trying to say is the scariest shit they've ever seen. I think when you look at the ratings on different websites, it's very clear that you're in the minority if you like this film, which is fine. That's not a big deal. I'm in the minority of a lot of films. I love Batman vs. Superman, you know, which is not going to help my case. I probably shouldn't have said that in this review, but just so you know. But me being a fan of experimental art house horror movies, this should have been up my alley. And what I got, I feel kind of insulted over. I really do. And I feel like a lot of people are trying to justify the money they spend here. I feel like a lot of people are trying to justify their feelings about it. You're insane. You're genuinely insane in my opinion. All that being said though, Skinamarink, what would you guys have to say about this film? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I'd love to hear all that down in the comment section down below about this movie. Did you love it? If you did, please let me know why. I would love to hear what you have to say about it. Did you have a good time? I kind of hope you did, but at the same time, it's a banana taped to a wall. If I had to rate Skinamarink on a 5-star basis, if I like anything that actually matters in a film, or just like one moment at all, or just cinematography, or just music, or anything, I typically don't give it my lowest rating. So this is a great example of Skinamarink. It has like 2 things in it that I really like. If I had to rate it on a 5-star basis, I'd give it a 2 out of 5 stars. Most of it's a total loss. I would never go to the theaters to see this shit, because it felt endless when I was watching it at home. And I feel like it would be even worse watching this in the dark with people who make noise, crinkle bags, all of that. This is great for you by yourself in the dark, on a laptop or on the TV. Nothing, no distractions, no cell phone. That would be great for that probably, but any other experience? Hell no. No. Nope, nope, nope. Anyway, have you seen Skinamarink? Do you love it? Do you hate it? I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments down in the comment section down below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Like I said, thank you all for watching. 2 out of 5 stars. And Valentine's Day is almost here, so happy Valentine's Day. Do not take your girlfriend to go see this movie. She will probably leave you. Anyway, God bless you guys. Goodbye.